following it online, and for those in the room, there is a change of order. We're going to go to dog registration fees and then to 7.14, Mayoral Delegation to Toowoomba, and then I'll repeat the order, and I'll go through the order after that. But first of all, Jono and Jason, welcome. Yeah. So dog registration fees, I'll leave it to you to brief us. We've obviously read the report, so.
Yep. Thank you. Hey, so we're just here today requesting council resolution to increase dog fees for the 2024-2025 registration period. The documentation has been distributed and I take it as read. There's just a few points just want to make on that, is that under the Section 37 of the Dog Control Act 1996 requires territory authorities to set dog fees upon council resolution. Those dog fees that we're wanting to increase haven't been reviewed since 2018, so it's been some time coming. We are looking at increasing the dog fees by 10%. Those fees being the full fee, dog full fee, working dog fee and multi-working dog fee. We've looked at our neighbouring councils' fees and we're competitive. The increase in fees will see less rates contribution and increase user pays. In the 2022-23 budget, 45% was rates contribution and 55% generated by dog fees, etc. So, yeah.
Great.
Happy to. Jason wants to add any more or open up the floor?
Okay. Do we have any questions?
Just one question,
yeah.
And it's probably a bigger question than the actual dog fees per se. This doesn't have to be done in conjunction with or pursuant to the annual plan. This is just a...
No.
Right.
Great. All right. No further questions. So happy to move. I think I heard Councillor Charlie and Councillor Philippa to second. Any comments? Councillor Jenny.
Thank you for your long-suffering wait, and we appreciate all the work you do. Thank you.
Councillor Michael.
Just a wee comment. I totally agree with these fees, but I want to make sure we're all aware that there are people struggling to pay dog fees, and I've had numerous people say to me that they're not paying the dog fees because they can't afford dog fees. So can we be conscious of how we also raise awareness of this and find ways to keep dog registrations going even if people can't afford it?
Just to thank you so much for the work that you do. You know, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just mention to the port directors that were here before, a lot of work goes on behind the scenes that we don't see, and it's same with you guys as well, fielding. And it's not usually a world that's full of positivity sometimes, so it's got its challenges, so thank you. Yeah. So, no further comments on. I'll put the motion on the screen that the council approves the increase of dog registration fees for the 24-25 registration period. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Cheers. Thank you.
We're now moving to 7.14, which is the Mayoral Delegation to Toowoomba. Welcome to the table, Maz. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm hoping this one will be relatively quick as well, and I'll take it as read, but just to highlight a couple of things. So, as per council resolution, any travel for the mayor or any elected member internationally needs to be determined by council resolution. So the purpose of this item is to seek that approval for Mayor Andrew and for Councillor Glenda Brown to lead a mayoral delegation to our sister city of Toowoomba in Australia for June. As it states in the item, we haven't had a mayoral delegation attend or visit Toowoomba since 2015, I think it was. So we are relatively overdue. They've been here quite a few times recently as well. And this opportunity arose with, I've been working alongside Colleen Sheldon from Wanganui and Partners. They have a agribusiness tour, study group tour, attending a conference and doing a visit. So it was in conjunction with that. So it's a larger group attending under the banner of a Mayoral delegation. So the draft itinerary is in there for your information. It's obviously not confirmed, but it gives you an indication of the type of visits and opportunities that these visits provide as well. So other than that, I'm happy to take any questions on it.
Okay. Councillor Kate and move, and Councillor Josh to second. So any comments? No? Okay. Councillor Charlotte, yeah.
I hope you both have a wonderful time and a good trip.
Well, thank you very much. That implies that it's a jolly, and so I'm anticipating that Glenda and I will work very hard.
Yeah.
What I will say is, and I'll pass over to Kate soon, is that we're our sister city network. We have three sister cities, and I think we can leverage those a whole lot more than we do across the 4 wellbeings. And I would also remind us that with our UNESCO City of Design designation, we're now a part of a 246 creative cities around the world as well. So I think Wanganui's got the ability to think more globally, to think differently the way that we have. We've grown up now. We can think aspirationally about our future being connected to the rest of the world. So this is what my rhetoric is about when I think about our creative city network and our sister cities. Thank you. Councillor Kate.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you both for offering to go. These trips away are not wonderful and not fun, but I mean, I'm sure there will be parts of it that will be enjoyable, but representing Wanganui on the Australian world stage is really important, so thank you.
Councillor Josh.
Yeah, I'll just add to that and say that, if you look at the global context, I mean, nationalism is rising, people are retreating into themselves, and I think in that context, international partnerships are more important than ever. We need to be nurturing our sister city relationships, and it is also true that in my time on council, there have been several delegations led by Mayor Paul Antonio, who I think is retired now, yes. But they have always been really beneficial. They've been useful, and I think it's time that we return the favour.
Yeah. Given it has been 9 years, I think, it's a long time. So great, thank you. So no further comments. I'll put the motion on the screen that the council approves Mayor Andrew Tripe and Councillor Glenda Brown for international travel to Toowoomba, Australia in June 2024. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Councillor Ross, thank you. All right, so motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right. Sorry, what's that?
We just need to put this motion before we get into the next one.
Oh, okay.
Just some additional stuff that's been uploaded to Delegation.
Okay, this is related to the long-term plan consultation. Yeah. So I've just been alerted. So we've obviously put the item 7.4, I think it is, off, which is the where are we? Yeah, 7.4, adoption of the long-term plan. We've obviously, there's been a bit of work behind the scenes. We've put it off, it's now ready to go. But in that time, we've now got some additional information related to that, and I'll read it out. That the following additional information is tabled with item 7.4 LTP consultation document, forecasting assumptions, full financial statements, audit report, and related to item 7.9 financial strategy and adoption of draft financial strategy and draft infrastructure strategy. So do we have to? Okay, can I move? I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kate. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. All right. So, item 7.9, which is the adoption of the draft finance strategy and draft infrastructure strategy. Welcome, Claire, and Mike.
Thank you. Just before I hand over to Claire to talk about the infrastructure strategy, the audit process was still going on this morning, and we received clearance about an hour ago, and so that's why you haven't had these documents. Changes were still being made to these documents this morning, so it's all been cleared. So as we present these different papers, we'll let you know what the significant changes to the relevant documents are, appreciating that you've just been flooded with information. You haven't had a chance to really digest or go through that. There is an order that we're doing it here, the proper order. We've slightly changed it around. Rather than adopting the consultation document first, we're adopting a couple of the key supporting information. Then we will ask you to adopt the consultation document. So this item, we're talking about the financial strategy and the infrastructure strategy, but please be aware that when you get to the real meaty rates increases, things like that, we'll be doing the consultation document in about 2 items' time. That may just help you with the order of what we're doing. So I'll hand you over to Claire just to talk about the infrastructure strategy.
Thank you, Mike. Managing infrastructure is a substantial part of our operation and a significant contributor to the well-being of the district. Our infrastructure ranges from district roads, bridges and footpaths to water and wastewater reticulation systems and stormwater drainage systems. Many of these assets are used by our community on a daily basis, and they are critical to allow our community to function. Councils are required to have an infrastructure strategy to outline how they'll look after their assets and respond to challenges over the next 30 years. Our infrastructure strategy helps us communicate that plan for our assets to our community. We want the community to be confident that will look after those assets so they can function effectively now and for generations to come. Our infrastructure strategy is unique to Whanganui. It reflects the state of our assets, our environment, the needs of our community, our financial position, and our community's ability to afford rates increases to pay for that infrastructure. For this long-term plan, our infrastructure strategy covers the 4 statutory groups: roading and footpaths, water supply, wastewater and stormwater. In line with legislation passed by the new government, we have prepared the infrastructure strategy and our long-term plan budgets based on council retaining the responsibility for 3 waters assets into the future. Our 5 key themes for this infrastructure strategy are changing legislative requirements and environmental standards. We have a number of new standards and legislative changes, and those are creating pressure on our budgets. Sustainably looking after our assets. We have a $1.5 billion portfolio of long-term assets, and managing those assets is a complex business. Managing increasing costs and affordability. We now have such significant inflation that we get a lot less bang for our buck than we used to. Climate change and resilience. Climate change is impacting on our stormwater and wastewater networks, and also causing damage on our roads. And growth, demographic and land use changes. We're expecting Whanganui to continue to grow at around 100 to 130 dwellings a year, and we know that our population is ageing. So our infrastructure strategy covers some of those key infrastructure issues and options to address some of our specific local issues. Some of those issues are the requirement for a step change in funding for our roads and footpaths to address our declining condition of our pavements, the plan for replacing the Dublin Street Bridge, increasing standards for drinking water supply. Our once fully compliant network for water supply now needs further investment to meet new standards. The poor performance of our wastewater and stormwater networks during wet weather events, and we have upgrades proposed for both of those networks in this plan, and the proposal to connect Mofano wastewater system to the city. So key aspects of that strategy are summarised in the main long-term plan consultation document, and they'll be consulted upon through that document with the community from the 2nd of April to the 2nd of May 2024. Thank you.
So the infrastructure strategy outlines the main issues and choices around our key infrastructure. The financial strategy outlines how we fund that, and is the other side of the coin to the infrastructure strategy. The on page on page 92 of the agenda, it outlines some of the background issues that's outlined in the financial strategy. It also outlines towards the bottom the cap that we're placing on our rates increase over the 10 years, and also outlines the debt ceiling that we're placing on council. The debt ceiling is 200% of total revenue, which is under the debt ceiling which we're allowed from our bankers, being the local government funding agency. The change that we've made to this financial strategy, to the one that was sent out in the agenda, is around the unbalanced budget, which I have outlined to you. We now have, within both this and the consultation document, we've indicated that there's 2 years in the long-term plan that we have an unbalanced budget. And what I mean by that is that the revenues are not sufficient to meet the operating expenses, including depreciation. The reason for that, again, is outlined in the documents, is more to do with our revaluation of our assets and the impact that's had on depreciation. And for the outer year, when we complete the Dublin Street Bridge, we'll also ramp up depreciation for that year. So we believe in current environment, it's prudent not to fully cover depreciation at that particular point in time, but as we're doing in years 1 to 3, start ramping up our income that we take to work on those asset categories. So that's the infrastructure strategy, financial strategy for adoption. Happy to take questions.
The caps of 200% of income and rates, they're not set in concrete though, are they?
Now, these are self-imposed caps. If we breach them, particularly if we, between the 3 years of the long-term plan, when we do an annual plan, if we project that we're going to breach them, then we need to explain why we're breaching them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, with regard to the cap, you've said it doesn't breach the 200, so it's 278 million, I think we're projecting to peak. What percentage is that estimated to be?
That is in the outline in the strategy where the cap is and where the debt limit is. I'm not sure the percentage of the debt cap we're at, but we still have significant debt headroom within that. So 50, 60, $70 million headroom within that 200%. So we're not getting that close to the headroom at this stage, to the, debt cap.
You know, so it's what then? It's going to be like 100, it's 140 now, isn't it?
We've got $150 million.
140%, isn't it?
Revenue is around about $90 million, so we've got close to $200 million debt cap.
Yeah.
And we're about 150 at the moment, 152.
Yeah. So when it peaks at 278, what does the revenue, what's the revenue projection to be able to say that it's well within the limit?
Yeah, sorry, within the strategy we have the peak debt at $278 million, and that's in 2030 to 31.
Yeah.
And that's 177% of our debt limit.
Thank you. So are we just doing questions on the infrastructure strategy now?
Okay, Councillor Peter?
Sorry, my second question was the unbalanced budget. Now, how do you propose to deal with that?
The reasons, it's important to understand the reason for the unbalanced budget, and that's, as we've outlined here, a number of things, inflation, but particularly around the revaluation, initially the revaluation of our particularly infrastructure assets has significantly increased, which means depreciation on those has significantly increased. Now, we could decide in year 1 or 2 to have a balanced budget, which means we ramp the rates up significantly higher. However, as we've said, collecting more rates is different to whether we can do a particular amount of work program. So in the consultation document, we're talking about, as a question in the consultation document, that we start ramping up our work, our income within those particularly infrastructure area, Three Waters roading, which will help us to meet the balanced budget. In the outer years, year 7, the budget is unbalanced due to the completion of the Dublin Street Bridge, which is a $60–70 million project, which will again have significant impact on depreciation. So again, and then the following year it comes back into budget. So the idea is that as we go through the ups and swings of depreciation expenditure, our rates income is gradually increased to meet the needs, as opposed to going up and down each year to meet depreciation calculations.
So you're paying it off over time?
Effectively, we are, well, yes, we are doing that, but we're also using debt to smooth the impact on rates.
Thank you. Mike, there's been a lot of media comment about councils simply either deferring or cancelling work and to stay within limits. So, seeing we're in public, can I ask you the question that, is this council covered for all foreseeable infrastructure renewals and replacements during the term of this 10-year plan? We are not deferring infrastructure projects simply to make ends meet.
Look, that is covered in the infrastructure strategy and in the consultation document. We have a key question in the consultation document about the levels of expenditure, particularly around the Three Waters and roading. And our suggestion, if we were to maintain improved levels of service, so we've got right now, due to the cost of inflation, the rates increase would be exorbitant. So we are suggesting we gradually increase the work program within those Three Waters. So over a period of the 10 years, we are maintaining service. Yes.
Thank you.
Through your worship, I was going to make an additional comment, but I think Mike just rounded it off there. But for clarity, yes, all foreseeable infrastructure needs are being met by this LTP during the full 10-year term. But as Mike has just outlined, we need to ramp up our expenditure slowly because the supply chain won't meet the demand if we do it all in one big go. So you do carry some risk in the early years until we finish playing catch up. But growth for our population is funded, our renewals is funded, increasing our water treatment plant processes to meet the rising regulations is covered. So I think you've got a good comprehensive LTP that should meet all foreseeable needs.
Yeah, thank you. I wonder if you could just give us kind of a brief idea or synopsis of, how much scrutiny has to go around all the interest rate swaps. I mean, I'm reading, if this is correct, that our projected debt levels can swing between about 1.5 and nearly $3 million a year for a 1% movement in interest rates. So, just 1% of interest rate makes, about 1.5 to nearly $3 million of difference on our debt, and that obviously affects our rates and affects what we can do. So, kind of just how hard is that? How hard and how much work needs to go into that to kind of basically get the best swaps possible, and do you generally feel there's enough support for that work?
So Part of a key assumption of the long-term plan is around interest rates, and we have, I think, 5.4% in year one, going down to 5% in year two onwards. And the question you're asking is more around our treasury management, which we report through to the operations committee. I'm confident that we can achieve the interest rate assumptions that we have in a long-term plan, and that was one of the assumptions that audit has tested us on to make sure there's some confidence over that. The amount of swaps we take is governed by the control limits we have in our liability management policy, and as you're aware, I do regular reporting through to that committee about our strategy towards that regarding particularly swaps, and how we manage that given the environment for interest rates that we're in, particularly around the OCR forecast and things like that.
All right. Okay, there's no further comments, and I do understand that Mike Webby's online. So he's available for available going forward for the next items, to I understand. Is that correct?
So for the adoption of the consultation document, which is not the next one, but the one after that, the team will present, briefly introduce it. Then Chris Webby will come on and talk about his audit opinion and be available to answer questions on the audit opinion and the audit of the LTP and supporting information.
Okay. So no further questions. Oh, okay, one more question. Sorry, Kate, I didn't see that.
Geez, I had to duck out of the room, but have we got the audit opinion in our papers?
It just can't, yes, been sent through.
It's just been sent through, so I'd just ask if we could have a pause to
take time to read it.
to have a read of it.
Yep. Okay. So, but don't we want to finish this item first?
Would you like to adjourn?
Okay. Okay. Yep. How long do you think we'll need to read through the item? I mean, just haven't got the emails yet.
Look, I think the audit opinion, it's a couple of pages, probably 5 minutes or so. Chris Webby will explain the audit opinion because there are some matter of emphasis in there, and he will explain that and what that actually means. But that's more in relation to the adoption of the consultation document.
Okay, so it's 10:27 if we're back, 2:27, sorry. We're back at 2:40. So, yeah, that'd be good. So, quick read. Welcome back, and thank you for that time. Obviously, we're just in time for this, so it's great. So thank you, Mike Webby, if you're online, for your work this morning. I assume it's been a bit of a scramble. I think we're on item 7.9, which is the adoption of draft financial strategy and draft infrastructure strategy. And we've had questions. Welcome, Mike. So for those on public, we've got Mike Webby, who's the auditor. Sorry, Mike. Sorry, Chris. Mike Webber on my mind. So, Chris Webby. So we've had questions. So can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Josh and Councillor Charlotte to second. Comments? Councillor Kate.
Sorry, this is very naughty of me, but I want to ask, in the context of the audit report that we've just read.
Sure. Okay, no, fair call, because we've just got Chris on the line.
I shouldn't have raised my hand.
Yep.
So in the context of the matters of emphasis about the cost savings, hotel and car park, opera house, and I think there is another one. What's the other one, Mike? No, that's it. That's it. There's the three of them there. What is that? What does that mean for us in terms of the what we're about to approve?
Chris, do you want to?
The financial, whatever it is.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah. So what it is all it's doing is directing the reader to those 3 points. So at the moment, it's just highly uncertain. So I'm not saying the assumption is wrong. I'm just saying it's highly uncertain, and it's key for the reader to be aware of that. So, for example, the cost savings, the asset sales, which are scheduled to happen in year one, if it goes ahead, it's more around the timing, because by the time you decide to go ahead, you identify the list, then you go consult. It's just around the timing of the year. Will you be able to do it within the 1 year? And then just with the cost savings, you've identified the first year, but then you'll be looking at cost savings for year 2 and on. So at the moment, it's just highly uncertain. So that's why that point has been included. With regards to the hotel and car park, that there is still waiting just for a more detailed business case. So once that detailed business case happens, council will then make a decision whether to go ahead with the hotel and car park. If council decide with regards to LTP to go with that option. So it's really just identifying that for the reader so they're well aware of that. And then the last one, which is just uncertainty over the Royal Opera House. Just at the moment, there is just no confirmed external funding for this, and this project's out in year 4 or 5. So wouldn't expect to get external funding confirmation as of yet, but it's really just identifying this to the reader that, hey, the risk is that if we don't get the funding, council will look at the project, and council may go ahead with it or they may change it. So it's really just identifying that. And with regards to the Royal Opera House, council has had evidence of receiving external funding for projects, for example, Sargent Gallery. So we're happy with the assumption. It's just around the high level of uncertainty that makes up the supporting documentation. So that's the only reason. So it's a clean audit opinion, but all we want to do is refer the reader to these 3 key points of your document. And with regards to that, disclosure within the CD has been updated as well. So it makes it clear for the reader as well. So the reader can read this opinion and then refer to the key points in the CD document as well.
Great. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. So, look, fair call. Do any have any other questions? I'm assuming that we don't. But so if we don't, we've got a mover and a seconder already, which is Councillor Josh and Councillor Charlotte. So we'll move on to comments. Councillor Josh.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to vote in support of both of these. Obviously, they're critical documents that inform the 10-year plan, but in particular, in regard to the infrastructure strategy, I just want to highlight how satisfied I am that the improvements to level of service for wastewater and stormwater will be gradually ticking up to address some of the issues around wet weather resilience and breaches of wastewater into the stormwater network that have been identified in the past. It shows that we are responding to those issues, and I just encourage all of us to keep a really close eye on that investment going forward, because it is critical in nature. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Josh. And my comments flow, talking of water, flow into that actually. You know, when I talk to fellow mayors around the country, many of them haven't invested in their three water assets, either at all or adequately enough. And we can see the media that's painted that picture. Even Palmerston North has got a $647 million build for its wastewater treatment plant coming up. We have invested responsibly as a council in our infrastructure, and we need to thank our previous governors for that diligence. Also, you know, we're in a good position, and I said that in my opening remark today, that we're in a good position. Often you forget about infrastructure. It's not shiny, it's not new. I mean, it can be new, but it's not shiny and seen and necessarily. And I think the fact that we're front-footing that, I think it should be the you know, good governing, good councils have done a good job in this, and I think we've done that. So thank you for acknowledging previous councils. Right, so no further comments. I'll put the motion on the screen that the council adopts the draft financial strategy for consultation as part of the long-term plan. This consultation document subject to any necessary minor amendments. And B, adopts the draft infrastructure strategy for consultation as part of the long-term plan. Consultation document subject to any necessary minor amendments. And C, delegates authority to the Chief Financial Officer to make changes to the draft financial strategy and draft infrastructure strategy before they are released for consultation, including a minor editorial changes and any changes needed to meet audit requirements. So, all those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We're now going to flip back from 7.9 to now to 7.6, which is the approval to consult on draft revenue and financing policy 2024. We've got Claire Williamson back again. Just you, is it, Claire? Just you, all right. Great, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'll keep this one relatively brief. There's not huge changes here. So under Section 102 of the Local Government Act, we are required to have a revenue and financing policy. The purpose of the policy is to set out our funding sources for operational and capital expenditure and the reasons for their use. So we reviewed the existing revenue and financing policy for this long-term plan, and we've made some minor changes. None of them are really substantial. I'll just quickly run through them. We aligned the activities and activity names and the links to the community outcomes with those used for the long-term plan. We've amended the operational funding sources for Jury Hill Elevator and Aquatics because those user fees used to be retained by the contractor and are now either in full or in part an income source for council. We've introduced development contributions as a form of capital expenditure funding for libraries, cemeteries and the Sargent Gallery. And we've added a section regarding consideration of support for Māori land retention and development in alignment with the preamble to the Te Ture Whenua Māori Act 1993. So they're relatively minor changes this time around. Most of the policy remains as it was at the last long-term plan. It's all loaded on Diligent for you to see the full funding needs analyses and the shortened version of the policy. If approved, the draft revenue and financing policy 2024 would be consulted on concurrently with the long-term plan and will run from 2 April to 2 May 2024 inclusive. Happy to take any questions.
Right. Thank you, Claire. Councillor Rob.
Thank you. Claire, is this document, or this policy, relevant to the whole 10 years, or is it subject to review at some stage?
Yeah, it's reviewed with every long-term plan. So every 3 years it's reviewed.
Every 3 years. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Right, no further questions. So I'll propose that we move the recommendation on the screen that the Council adopts the draft Revenue Financing Policy 2024 for consultation. B, approves consultation of the draft Revenue and Financing Policy 24 to run from 2 April to 2 May. C, delegates authority to the Chief Financial Officer to make changes to the draft Revenue and Financing Policy 2024 before it is released for consultation, including minor editorial changes and any changes needed to meet audit requirements. Happy to move. Councillor Kate. Second, Councillor Rob. All right. So any comments on this item? Right. Okay. Well, I'll while there's nothing on the screen, I'll move quickly to put the motion on the screen. All those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. All right. The next item, after 7.6, we go now back to 7.4. Which is so adoption of the long-term plan 2024 to 34, consultation document and supporting material. Welcome to the table, Robin and Elise.
Thank you. David is actually going to lead off with some...
Sorry, yes, sorry. Yeah, go.
Through you, Worship, I'll just start with a brief introduction, and then I'll hand over to Elise and Robin to go from there. Look, it's a pleasure to present the LTP consultation document to Council for your approval so that we can go and have that conversation with our community. This is the culmination of a huge amount of work that has gone into it, both by staff, but also you as the governance team as well. As you know, we've taken a different approach to putting together our long-term plan this time round, with a real emphasis on the business case approach to prioritising our projects and our capital investment. Over 160 point of entry business cases have been written, which is no small feat in itself, alongside all of the other work that goes into a long-term plan. And those of you who've been here for multiple terms will know that typically an LTP takes a good year to 18 months to put together in its own right. The rates increase that we are consulting the community on is 10.6%, but I want to put that into context as to what's going on nationally. The average across, I think, about 48 councils so far that have published or confirmed their figures is about 15%. Within our region, Horizons are consulting on 12.9%, Tararua 13.8%, Christchurch is 15.8%, Horowhenua 17.4%, Queenstown 19.3%, and Hamilton is the highest I've found so far at 25.5%.
Buller 33.
Oh, Buller at 33 apparently. So
Buller.
So in that context, I think we've done incredibly well. And whilst our community may think 10.6 is still too high, I would also highlight that that includes 2.2% for the new curbside collection. And then when you knock off the hike in the cost of our insurance, we're actually delivering a plan for our ongoing business as usual for just 6.9%. That's largely down to the fact that we put in place the 6-point plan as part of our organisational strategy, and we've really worked hard to deliver this result for our community. For that money, though, the community is going to get a lot. We have really prioritised making sure we're making a significant investment into our road maintenance, increasing the funding for our Three Waters maintenance. We're really prioritising the basics, and I think that's what the community wants us to do. We're going to be able to build the infrastructure the city and the district needs to accommodate growth. We're going to make sure our drinking water is safe and meets the relevant standards, and that our wastewater treatment remains at a high environmental standard. We're funding the replacement of Dublin Street Bridge within the 10 years, as well as other catalytic projects, such as potential hotel development that will unlock economic opportunities for our community and keep Whanganui on an upwards trajectory. We need to take some pain to be able to do this, and we've already made almost $2 million worth of cuts locked in through the efficiency savings that the management team are making in our back office functions, through the cuts that you've already confirmed through some of the reports in the last few months. But there's more to come, and we need to hear the community's views on those more significant cuts before you lock in your decisions there. I'm incredibly proud of our team for the fact that we've delivered this with a clean audit opinion, notwithstanding those three matters of emphasis. As you may be aware, with the upheaval in the Three Waters reform space, the local government sector was given the option to go out to consultation with unaudited consultation documents, and some of our peers across the country will be doing just that. I think it's a testament to the hard work of our staff that we're in this position, that we have completed the audit process, and that we've got such a good opinion from it. I would like to thank Chris and his audit team. I'm aware that you were probably up in the wee small hours of this morning working hard to make sure we could have your opinion this morning, so your efforts are acknowledged and appreciated. To all of our staff, just want to say thank you for the last 18 months worth of work. Huge effort, and you should be proud of yourselves. And then finally, thank you to councillors. We've worked you hard with a lot of workshops, but we got there in the end. So on that note, I'll hand over to Elise and the team.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Kia ora koutou. So the purpose of this paper is to request that Council adopts the supporting information for the consultation document, adopt the long-term plan consultation document itself, and to hold consultation on the long-term plan between 2nd of April to 2nd of May 2024. So the long-term plan, also known as a 10-year plan, is a legislative requirement for all councils where the final document is owned by its elected members. A series of workshops were hosted with elected members through 2023 and early 2024 to determine the issues the district is facing and how elected members would like to respond to those challenges. The consultation document allows Council to have a conversation with its community about these issues, and the document clearly outlines where Council has worked hard to strike the balance to address cost of living pressures and to make long-term investments whilst keeping rates increases down in the current economic environment. Specific details have been highlighted within the paper itself. There are minor degrees of risk associated with our recommendation. Risks are minor because we're seeking adoption of the consultation document and its supporting information to allow us to go out for consultation and gather feedback from the community. There are no decisions being made today based on the contents within the document itself. This will come at a later date once we have consulted with the community. The consultation document and supporting information have received a full audit by Audit New Zealand, which you're now aware that this came back clean with matters of emphasis. And Chris Webby, who was our audit director, is online, and I'll pass over to him shortly to give some more information surrounding the audit opinion. I did want to highlight that through this audit process, and this has kind of been alluded to, that there's been some updates to the document since the agenda was put out and this was received by yourselves. So I just want to run through some of these changes. So there are changes to the full financial statements, the forecasting assumptions, and the consultation document itself. So for the full financial statement, we have recalculated the depreciation based on feedback from audit. The changes affects our overall profit in each of the 10 years, meaning that in addition to having an unbalanced budget in year 1, we also have an unbalanced budget in year 7 as a result of depreciation relating to Dublin Street Bridge replacement. There are also some slight reclassifications to comply with the accounting standards, and we have included the accounting policies. For the assumptions, we've added and updated some of the references provided. There has been some rewording of the Three Waters assumptions to better reflect current legislation, and additional information was also provided to the operational efficiencies assumption. For the consultation document, some of these are minor tweaks to wording or additional wording to ensure that communication is clear for our community and to provide better signposting for navigating the document better. As the design continues to shape up, the cover image is also being replaced, so you'll notice a difference there. We've also added some wording surrounding asset sales, operational efficiencies, the hotel and car park, and Dublin Street Bridge to provide more clarification on those. It's important to note that any significant changes beyond this point to the consultation document or supporting information will require further audit reviews, which may lead to legal compliance risks and inability to meet legislative deadlines. So I'll now pass over to Elise to speak to other parts of the report.
Thank you, Robin. So there are a number of parts in the consultation document I'd just like to highlight, which I think will be of strong interest to the community. So part 2 is an important section, and I'd like to draw your attention to this. It discusses how rates are being reduced for next year, so that's from 1st of July 2024, and it includes a list of potential service cuts with the elected members' preferred options indicated next to each service. As the Mayor has already mentioned, to keep the rates rise to 10.6, the Council will need to make at least $2 million worth of cuts. Some people may want to know, why are we focusing on service cuts? A key reason is that cutting services will have an immediate impact in reducing rates. As a rule of thumb, our finance team states that $750,000 of OPEX, or operating costs, equates to a 1% reduction in rates, whereas $7.5 million of CapEx, capital costs, that's 10 times as much, equates to a 1% reduction in rates. So cutting services, while really difficult, provides a more immediate cost saving. As mentioned, the Council is required to elect its preferred option for each significant service it's cutting, so our finance team can then build up a budget based on your preferences. But I do want to reiterate, these service cuts are all subject to the community consultation process coming up, and no final decisions have been made. The next part of the consultation document I'd like to draw your attention to is part 4, the long-term investments. While it might seem counterintuitive about talking about reducing services and then talking about big investments, it's important to understand, as mentioned, these two things are funded very differently, and they'll have an impact over a different timescale and an impact in a different way. Investing for the future does not impact on our rates so much in the short term, because we generally use borrowing to pay for these types of projects. This means the cost can be spread over many years, and without this type of borrowing for investment into capital projects, communities would simply not have the infrastructure that enables them to exist and grow. The proposed long-term investments outlined in the consultation document are about setting up the district for the long term, as well as being able to support some really important community projects. 20 community groups came to Council and presented their projects through the point of entry business case process, and 10 of these projects are proposed to be funded through this draft plan. So it's important to point out that most of these projects will have no impact, these long-term investments will have no impact on next year's rates rise, and many of the projects, including the community projects, being funded after next year. So with the number of long-term projects that Council could invest in, we're now asking the community to help the Council decide which of these investments should the Council proceed with or not. And as with the service cuts, the options presented are elected members' preferred options for the long-term investments, and no final decisions have been made. And Chris has already pointed out the hotel, which has been signalled in the consultation document as subject to the detailed business case, which would require a return on rates by 2038, so that would have to reduce rates and provide a return on investment. So just moving forward to one final piece I'd like to highlight is the resolution around the 4 wellbeings. I'd like to note that there's a resolution to adopt the 4 wellbeings as the framework for the long-term plan. So this change is to ensure we're aligning with the Local Government Act, which states the purpose of Council is to promote the social, economic, environmental and cultural wellbeing of communities in the present and for the future, commonly known as the 4 wellbeings. This change will align our framework with the LGA and flow through the long-term plan in specific ways, such as through to our activity pages and our future business cases. We ran a significant amount of community engagement last year on the 4 wellbeings, and that provided us with a lot of rich information to help us better understand what does wellbeing mean to the community and what does it look like in practical terms, and therefore how as Council can we contribute to the wellbeings. I would like to note the work on the long-term vision, or the vision for Whanganui, as it's come to be known, is still underway. This vision is about creating a 30-year roadmap for Whanganui, and we've been working together with partners on this project, and we'll be returning to the community for feedback on that later in the year. In terms of consultation, I just want to note we're still working to confirm a few of the consultation events, so a couple of those in the draft document may change, but we're hoping to get events across different locations and suburbs across the district. This is including at Hakeke Street Community Centre in Whanganui East, at the Davis Library, Lawrencedale Park in Gonville, the Splash Centre and in Castlecliff. Elected members and staff will also be out and about in a more informal capacity, meeting up with community groups, iwi hapu, interest groups, and groups that they are part of to spread the word in a more informal way. We're hoping to get the message out as far and as wide as possible. Key message being, community, please submit, please share your views. This is your opportunity. So there will be the usual channels to get this information out, such as through hard copies available at the libraries and the main council building, the council's website, Facebook, print and newspaper, and as mentioned, more informal engagement. So, next steps. Obviously, complete that consultation, which will be a significant milestone, and then hearings are scheduled from 14 to 15 May. So this is the opportunity for the community to come and speak to their submissions, and we encourage as many people to come and speak either in person or via Zoom. Deliberations will take place at the end of May, and that's when the final decisions will be made, with the final plan being updated and adopted by 30 June. So that draws me to the end of my piece. I'd just like to also say a big thank you to everyone and to call out the audit team who've worked really hard to ensure their opinion can be delivered on time. And it was a lot of extra work, and it's been greatly appreciated as it gives us confidence in the material and the process we've followed. So I'd like to hand over to Chris Webby from Audit now to speak to his opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. Welcome back, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon again. I'd like to start off with actually just thanking council, management and staff. This has definitely been one of the hardest rounds I've seen with regards to the LTP-CD, just with the amount of change in the environment. So it's a great effort that we're here today and you're able to adopt the CD with an opinion. So I'd just like to thank everyone who was involved. As you can see with the opinion, it's a clean audit opinion. So if council adopts the audit, adopts the CD today, along with the supporting information, then in my opinion, the CD will provide an effective basis for public participation in council decisions about the proposed content of the 24-34 long-term plan, because it fairly represents the matters proposed for inclusion in the long-term plan and identifies and explains the main issues and choices facing the council and district and the consequences of those choices, and also the information and assumptions underlying the information in the CD are reasonable. Without modifying the audit opinion, I've already gone through the three emphasis matters, but I'll just give another high level. So all it is I'm saying that the assumptions are reasonable, but there's just a high level uncertainty and it could have a significant impact. So that's the reason why I've highlighted those. I'm happy to go into any more detail with regards to those EOMs or the opinion. So I think I'll just let anyone ask me any questions.
Great. Thank you, David, Robin, Elise and Chris for your comments and introduction. So I'll move it over to any questions. So Councillor Charlie, you are very quick off the mark.
Thank you. Are we allowed to speak about specific items in here? Because I see we're on air, but it's not supposed to go public till the second, is it?
Yeah, no, it's all public. Yep. Yeah, it's on public. So you can ask any points of clarification.
Just on the Whanganui East pool, if we had $140,000 taken off for that maintenance and the $112,000 for wages, which I assume would stay with Splash, there's actually no rate savings by closing it.
So is this a question?
I say, is there any rate saving by closing it?
Through your worship, yes there is.
I estimate $2,000 worth.
Through your worship, the savings are as they're written in the document. Off the top of my head, I can't see the figure, but as they're stated in the document, that's the estimate that we believe will be saved if the pool is closed.
I thought the $140,000 for repairs and maintenance had been pulled.
Yeah, Elise.
The document has the pool costs around $250 per year to operate and to maintain it. So I've had finance confirm, and you asked this earlier, that is the cost to operate and maintain it. But there's also the avoided cost of the $2.1 million to bring it up to standard as well.
That's the 2.1, but I'm just talking about an annual basis, so that the salaries of 112,000, they would come from Splash. What I'm assuming that those wages would still be being used to employ.
Okay, can I just invite you up, Les, to speak to this?
Just as in the document, the savings will be 250,000 if it closed, because we won't need to be staffing it and we won't need to be doing the maintenance if it's closed. If it remains open, we have to keep staffing it,
right,
and we'll have to keep doing the maintenance.
So my question was, will those staff employed specifically for the One Reach pool? If it's closed, will they not just go back to Splash where they were before?
It's done through a roster system, so yes, so if it's closed, we won't have as many requirement for lifeguards.
Okay.
But if it stays open, then we do. That's the cost of keeping it open.
Great, thank you. Councillor Rob.
Thank you. Elise, the website, the rating search on the website, very handy to refer people to for their own properties. So when will that be live? Wasn't yesterday, I noticed.
By the 2nd of April, and what we're going to do is we're going to show, we're working on showing last year's, this year's and next year's rates rise, as I think you asked for being able to see that. So that work is underway at the moment.
Well, this year's rates are on there now.
Yeah.
So usually in the past, next year's rate demand has been published below it.
It will be, yeah.
Okay, so...
Not till the 2nd? Not until this is adopted, and then work will happen behind the scenes and we'll make sure it's up and live by the 2nd.
So when you say we're adopting it today, aren't we? Yeah. Okay. So I presume we'll be told when it's live. Thank you. The other questions are for Mike and others. When do you want us to ask those?
Well, if they're related to item 7.4, then...
Well, they're certainly related to the consultation document.
Okay, yep, that's
fine.
Yeah.
Mike, one of my concerns, and I raised it with you, is that there's not, that I can see in the consultation document, the breakdown of the componentry of the increase, the 10.6 average, and the 12.8 residential. So can you just identify that? And in your response, you outlined a rather large figure, 4.7 for other, and maybe I thought you might be able to break that down as well.
Yeah, so as I emailed elected members, we didn't this time have time to put in the CD the breakdown of rates that we have previously, but also understanding that there's a lot happening in this particular consultation document, which would have been hard to potentially represent. So at a high level for our rates, 10.6%. You have within that, as has been alluded, you've got the 2.2% of curbside. You have the interest, that's just the interest cost, not the loan repayments, interest cost across council's entire portfolio of 2.2%. And you have an increase in the insurance budget of 1.5%. So, and again, as has been alluded, that leaves a 4.7% increase for everything else. And within that everything else, you have the $2 million of efficiency savings that have been baked in there. You've had, and I think specific questions was asked around the port, and excluding the interest component of that, which is included within that 2.2% I highlighted. The port is only an extra 0.2%. The sergeant, excluding the interest, is actually a 0.1% decrease. And then the large increases in the other core infrastructure, which is your Three Waters roading. We've got, I think, in the consultation document, there is an average $1.05 million increase over the 10 years, but we've ramped it up in year one, as we've highlighted, and in year one we've got an increase of $3.3 million, which is 4.4%. So between sort of those cost savings, the infrastructure, and the other stuff I've highlighted, that's the core component of that increase. There are a lot of rats and mice, for want of a better term, of some of the other stuff going on.
Thank you. During this consultation process, that of course is one of the key questions that we as elected members get asked. What's caused that? Elise, you said that you are going to put together a document to allow elected members to answer these questions. Would that be this make-up of this particular increase? I realise that it's a broad-based approach, but I think it tells a story.
So I think, as I emailed out, while we can't put in the consultation document, we haven't had time, it is important information for the community to understand.
Okay.
And so we will be putting that sort of information in our other communications to the public on our website, and also we'll provide it to elected members to be able to use in your own personal interactions with the community. Okay.
And the other key question, Mike, is and to be answered is why the residential rate is 12.8, which is substantially more than we're talking about with the 10.6. And in fact, the consultation document, the examples used for residential property vary between 12.4 and 14.8. So it seems to me that we need an explanation of elected members on that point. And can you tell us why, for instance, it is so much more than, for instance, the commercial rate?
There's probably one key component that has increased that, and that is to do with the new curbside service. That is predominantly residential, so it's impacted that sector, predominantly that sector, and that's probably the key reason. There's other reasons as well, such as, I mean, we have a multitude of rates, and rates, for example, in the Three Waters, some of those are fixed rates, and so they would hit probably residential slightly more than commercial. So those are the key reasons there. I would probably like to make the point, and it's worth noting that through the current annual plan, individual properties have experienced significant shifts in their rates compared to what we publish as the average, and it's well highlighted. The reasons for that was largely to do with the significant shifts in valuations from the district valuation. This year, from the modelling we've done, although the average residential set is 12%, there is some variation, but it's nowhere near as large as what people have experienced through this annual plan. And I think that's quite an important message for all of us to be able to take out to the community for that.
Yep. And just my final question to Mike, Your Worship, is that one of the questions asked in here for the public to answer is Wanganui and Bloom, $93,000. I understand that Wanganui and Bloom is funded 50% from the CBD rate and 50% from the general rate. So the savings then are not what it says in the document. It says $5 per property, whereas anybody looking at that will know that it's only going to be less than $2.50, I would say, and then a greater saving for the commercial. So I just point that out as an anomaly there. That is incorrect information.
So we've got that. I mean, we'll look at that, but it's got it per property as opposed to per residential property. But we'll look at the wording on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philippa.
Yes, thank you. 2 or 3 quick questions, I think. Maybe Elise could help with the first. But this consultation period is from the 2nd of April, I guess, just after Easter, and it's for 4 weeks. So I haven't got the end date in front of me, but it's our LTP. There's a lot of information. I know it's quite late to ask this, but considering we don't have to actually approve or set the rates to the 30th of June or the 1st of July, have we considered, and I would like to ask the consideration of giving up to 6 weeks for this consultation period. I think Anzac Day obviously falls within this 4 weeks. Just seems a lot of information, and if we want to really, really consult well and get out to, we talked about a lot of interest groups, is it a possibility?
Unfortunately not, and it's because of the hearings and then the deliberations. Those really need to happen by the end of May, and you'll remember that we then have to actually pull all the long-term plan documents together, and those are fairly significant documents. So working backwards, we're actually cutting it pretty fine as well, and a number of councils have already launched their consultation. 1 calendar month is what is required by the legislation, and we are within that. And I believe basically all councils are consulting for a month. I don't think I've seen any doing 6 weeks. We know it's a lot of information. It has already been said, and I think I've said 16 or 17 issues as opposed to 4 last year. It is a lot. We're working really hard on the submission form to try and make it nice and easy and to break it down for our community. We'll work on communications per topic, so there'll be dedicated communications for Whangaree's Pool, dedicated for the hanging baskets. There'll be specific information available for those, so people can just jump to the information that they're most interested in, because I suspect that a lot of the community, there will be a couple of issues that they're really, really interested in, and they want to really drill in on those. So short answer to that was no. So, yeah, okay. Hope that answered it though.
Yeah, thanks for the prior consideration of all that. Appreciate that. Just probably, Mike, on the revaluation, the big impact last year on some of our, particularly in areas like Aramaho, Gonville, and that impact. Can we, if you haven't got it now, are we going to be able to see hopefully a real smoothing? Some of them got hit between 40 and 70+% last year in rate increase. It's 1,200 odd properties possibly. Is it going to be hard to actually show us prior to, or show us at some stage the suburban type of where rates might fall, or average rates?
We've done some of that modelling and brought it back to you and during the workshops, and part of that was around, for those who did experience those significant rates increase around the 40, 50, 100%, could we do anything through this annual plan? And the effectively was no. So every time we try to move rates to help somebody, it disadvantaged somebody else. And so what we did this year, as you're aware, is put in place a remission process to help those people initially. That was a 1-year relief, and rates, as we've talked about many times being a blunt tool, the rates recognises the wealth of a property. As we know, that doesn't necessarily translate to cash flows. So those properties that received a significant rates increase due to the size largely of their land, we're anticipating their rates increase will be comparable to others for the year 1 of long-term plan, which is around the 12% for residential.
Okay, just further there, sorry, in regard to, the impact of curbside recycling, I think it's averaging $143 across our average 10.6 rate this year, but obviously, residential at 12.8% average is higher than that. So looking forward to next year with food waste being another 1.5% or so, or a bit under, somewhere around there. I imagine that's also going to hit residential properties harder again. Is that correct?
They're the ones predominantly receiving the service, yes.
Right. So last kind of question for me for the moment is, I can't find anywhere, I might have missed, but I can't see across the 10 years the average. Can certainly see the average, what our costs and our revenue expenditure, some of that stuff, but I can't see the average rate sitting across in our financial summary. Is that correct? I can't see it in the big tables.
It isn't here.
It isn't there. It's around 4.3%. I think it's got there.
What page would that might be on? And on this.
Look, we'll get back to you with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two, maybe three short ones. So we've been saying the word average 10.6, residential, private home dwellers, 12.8. Okay. Because 10.6 is what's been going out, and I don't think people understand the word averaged. Hope they do now. If I was to say to you that rates are going up on average for residential somewhere between $9 and $12 a week, just a rough figure, for residentials, what percentage of our residential ratepayers would be captured in that range? I'm aware we have 21,650 something ratepayers, 20% of them are probably rural, but is there a broad figure of, again, how many are captured in residential, the bulk? Is it 60%, 70%?
No, it's around about, Simon will be able to get the number. It's a very high percentage.
Right.
The number of properties in residential. 82%. 82% of our properties are classified residential.
Right. So that other 18% would be at the what we call
farming,
farmers and tail ends.
Farming and commercial.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Rob.
I've got some questions for David now. About the hotel and car park. The option 1, option 2. Option 2 is that if a developer does the whole project, and so there's no impact on rates. What about the property acquisition? I presume that has to be year 1. So where is that included in the plan at this point in time? The property acquisition.
Through you, Your Worship, that's outside of this LTP process because you've already given authority to officers to go and make some property acquisitions. I won't talk in any more detail about those because that was done in a confidential meeting. A comment that I would make, though, is both of those options in the consultation document are meant to be as little impact on the ratepayer as possible. Council could have the choice to be the developer and fund the hotel because it would be a profitable investment that would then create an income to offset ratepayer funding for other services. Alternatively, you may not want to take the risks or might not have the appetite for whatever reason to make that investment, in which case we would look to bring in a private developer. Hence the difference in the two options, but this is not intended to be a ratepayer subsidised hotel.
Yes, but our plan, the 55 million, must be included in this financial plan somewhere.
Yes, that's right.
So is there something in this next 12, the first year one, or is there nothing in year one?
I can't remember which years it falls into. I think it is in year 1 and 2.
Year 1 and 2?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's also a question that public are asked to comment on about $500,000 per annum from year 3 for Māori funding. Is there a formal business case for that can be referred to?
Through you, Your Worship, no, not at the moment. The genesis of that one is from the Better Off funding. As you'll know, Council received $6 million from the DIA as part of the Three Waters reform program under the previous government. That was meant to be tranche 1 of 2, and Council would have received a second tranche of about $18 million had the reform program not changed direction with the change of government. The original expectation was that some of that funding would go towards supporting Māori, and plans for future upgrades would be made at the same time, with the view that they could then be funded from a share of that second tranche of funding. In the absence of tranche 2, Ahapu have asked if we could include funding to pick up where we left off. Obviously, a lot more work would be done before any money would be spent on any Māori. And as you've pointed out, it doesn't kick in until year 4 of the LTP. So this would have to go through a whole nother LTP planning cycle, by which time a lot more work would have been done. And you'll probably have a business case in front of you before you start spending any of that money.
So I can recall discussing the Better Off funding, and that's 1.8 million or something, or figure around that.
About 1.4.
1.4 million. Did we discuss in a workshop this 3.5 million as well?
Through you, Your Worship, no. It was something that we overlooked because it wasn't in year 1. So it hasn't been the focus of a workshop, but you will recall that I circulated email to you all probably over a month ago now, just highlighting that this was an issue that hadn't been discussed in a workshop. I had no responses from any elected members about it, so we've not scheduled a workshop with you because there was no apparent appetite for one.
So are you aware that Horizons have also got $100,000 per annum in their long-term plan for this purpose as well?
Through you, Your Worship, no.
Well, it's true.
Okay, so no further questions. So I propose that I'm happy to move the recommendation on the screen. So item 7.4, adoption of the long-term plan 24 to 34, consultation document and supporting material. A, adopts the supporting information and the long-term plan 24 to 34 consultation document for consultation, subject to any minor amendments or any changes needed to meet audit requirements. And B, notes the consultation document highlights an unbalanced budget for years 1 and 7 of the proposed long-term plan. And C, holds consultation on the long-term plan from 2 April 24 to 2 May 2024. D, holds the 4 wellbeings as described in the Local Government Act as Council's community outcomes which form the basis of the long-term plan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Glenda. Right, so comments. Councillor Charlie, first, you're quick off the mark today, Charlie.
First up. Like, I know this is not easy, but I'd really hope that curbside recycling would have been kicked a touch rather than the Wanganui pool. Those that recycle already do that, and those that don't won't, in my opinion. Yet we keep recycling in the long-term plan and now planning for our kids nowhere to swim. This is a real protest vote for me, but I'll be voting against this long-term plan.
Okay, great, thank you. So we're still in consultation. We've got a fair way to go yet before any final decisions are made. Councillor Michael.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I actually support Charlie in this. I'd like to first of all congratulate the staff. For the first time in Wanganui Council history, we have a itemised sub-activity list per cost, per value that you all voted on your KPIs. So anyone can ask for this for a Lagoima and see from most expensive cost per dollar to least expensive cost per dollar. The most expensive cost per dollar is obviously what should be cut, because you get the least amount of value per dollar spent. Would make objective sense, would make obvious sense, and when it goes public, I'm sure the public will agree. However, we have things on this list, like these pool, that have far more value than they cost per dollar. But we do buffer these cost per dollars, and I love Charlie's point of view on this. There's $172,000 in major work that we haven't agreed to do, and we probably shouldn't do, because we need to have a consultation on what we're going to do about outside swimming. There's 140k of maintenance. You guys are all aware, in the email I put forward, stop the maintenance. We've got to have a consultation on what we could do about outside swimming. So there's 110k of run costs. So really, are we really saving 422,000? Don't think so. The Aviary is a great example of this as well. For those who remember last year, and it wasn't that long ago, last year we were saving $40,000 by closing an Aviary. Now most of you voted in favour. It went to consultation. And I want to point out why it's so important for you to do your submissions. I want thousands of submissions this time, because we turned that vote around. It was going to close the Aviary, and we didn't close the Aviary because it's 40,000. But now we are saving 190,000. Ask thyself why it's 190,000, and can we just change what we're going to spend the money on? Seeing as most of the benefit has been realised from the transformation has already gone ahead, and we have some birds that probably should just be left to die over time, as opposed to replacing them. As opposed to removing an Aviary that has tens of thousands of people using it, similar to Swanganese Pool. I spent 3 hours with the CE. We did a great job. A very great job. I'm sounding like Trump now, aren't I? Did a great job. Very good job. But we did a good job. We spent 3 hours going through what was mandatory, what was recommended, what was desirable. We went through a holistic approach, not just cutting everything that made sense. We just cut things, and then we added things that made a holistic approach to the low option. Ask yourself, where has the low option gone? There are hundreds of you asking me now, hashtag low option, where's the low option? You're going to have to write a submission. You're going to have to look at my low option. I'll be posting on Facebook on April 2nd with all the lists of all of our items I want to cut. And I want you to put that in your submission. Because what we learned from last year, it doesn't matter if you email your councillors, it doesn't matter if you post it on Facebook, it needs to be in the submission process. We have a really good holistic methodology for objective decision making and governance for cuts. We have had a 123% increase in 14 years of council rates. 123%. We had a 65% increase in household income. We are not rich, and we cannot keep on expecting our people to hand out more and more money, especially when we have things that they might not know about. So $1.3 million is spent on community grants and events. Do you want it? If you want it, great, but do you know about it? Because I've gone through hundreds of people so far the last 6 months, and most people don't even know about it. We have things, and I'm going to run out of time, but we have things around libraries. Do we need 7 libraries? Councillor Josh loves libraries. We spoke about this over here. Do you want 7 libraries? Or do you want one amazing library with free public transport to get you there? It's your choice. Have a think about it. Do we need mobile libraries? Public arts, 176,000. Do we need Cook's projects? Do we need to invest in our sports or not invest in our sports? These questions are not there. You're being asked to look at a few items that do add up to the required 2 million, but I urge you that we can go to 5.4%. We can go to 5.4%. The low option gives you things, takes away things, makes us more cohesive around what we should spend on, centralizes a lot of our decision making, and then allows us to have it below household income increases. Household income increases were 5.5%. We should not be making you poorer as a
Point of
council.
order.
Point of order. Goodbye.
What's the point of order?
Me. Just asking clarification, are we on the 5-minute timer?
That's not a point of
Well,
order. That's not a point of
I'm still raising it.
4 minutes and 45 seconds.
Could you slow down so I can understand them?
Take a deep breath.
Take a little breath and maybe get a drink of water.
So my microphone's gone, so I'll move over
You're
to
good.
Councillor Josh.
I think it's been a long day. Right, so I'll start first of all by thanking the staff and acknowledging the culmination, or the near culmination, of over a year's worth of work on this LTP. It's been a huge process in a difficult economic and financial context, so just want to make that acknowledgement. This is a really important LTP, long-term plan, for us, because it brings to a head the clash, if you like, between affordability, the cost of investing prudently, the question of what services council provides to its community and at what level, with what I think we can all agree is the total inadequacy of the funding system that we have been handed by central government. And I know that we probably all sound like a broken record on this point, but this LTP for our council and for a lot of councils right across the country highlights just how critical this situation is becoming for local government across New Zealand. Now, where am I going with this? Obviously, there are some tough questions too that the community will have to make alongside us. We are putting up a significant amount of service cuts, and the question is clear, really. Do the community want a higher rates increase or a lower level of service? There's not really any in between this time round. I want to acknowledge the audit report, which does highlight some really pertinent points around the uncertainty of the assumptions that we're making around the sale of assets. We don't know whether we're going to be able to achieve those sales, and a number of other points as well. I also want to acknowledge that while we're operating in a really challenging economic and financial environment, that this long-term plan does look towards the future as well. And the hotel is a demonstrable example of that. You'll all know that over 2022, I was working as the sports coordinator for the New Zealand Masters Games, and I know the limitations that come out of us having inadequate accommodation in this community, and the limitations that places on our ability to grow these major events, and all the other positive downstream consequences of that. So I think this is a really important project that we are identifying as a priority for us. There are some more minor cuts that we are not actively consulting on that I am concerned about. One of them is the cut to the Sargent Gallery operating fund this upcoming financial year. I am concerned about what the impact of that will be. I'm also concerned about our cut of the Youth Council. I do think that we have a role in actively engaging young people in what local government means. The education system is insufficient in this space, and we have been filling a gap for the last 18 years of having operated a youth council within this local authority, and I want us to examine opportunities for that to improve going into the future. But ultimately, like my colleague, Councillor Michael, I just want to encourage the community to provide their submissions on these issues. It's going to be a tough time for us making these decisions, and we need to do it alongside the community. So thank you, and I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. I think we'll... Oh.
What?
Thank you. Thank you. I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. There are some tough calls in this consultation document, and we knew that it was going to be like that. We knew that a lot of them were going to be emotional, they'll be very highly emotive ones. But the fact is, things are really tough, and council as well has to make those tough calls to be able to meet our promise to try and keep rates down as low as we can. So I will be supporting this document, and also want to say a big thanks to the staff
for their work and this huge amount of work over the last 18 months or so. And we've also workshopped this to death ourselves. So again, just encouraging the community to get behind this and to make these submissions. No decisions have been made in this consultation document, and we're really relying on the public to get on board and have their say through the official process of submitting online, not emailing the councillors, although we welcome those emails, of course, but you need to be able to do it through the proper process as well, and to engage where you can with the events that we'll be having during the consultation process. Thank you. I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, well, this is the culmination of a lot of work, over the last year to 18 months by both the management team and the executive, and of all elected members, and everybody has put huge amounts of time into this, and I congratulate everybody on the way this has come together. But everything is a proposal at this stage, and this consultation document details where the public can express their support or their opposition. And I hope that the public get that message and that opinion comes in. Like all elected members, there are things that I like in this plan and there are things that I don't. And what I do strongly support is the new investment, more investment in core infrastructure, drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, and roading. $10.5 million per annum, costing the ratepayer another $56 per annum, but money well spent. And I think that the ratepayer do not begrudge that amount of expenditure on such practical things as new core infrastructure. And also, any talk of the need to amalgamate with other local authorities because of the state of our infrastructure has been put firmly onto the back burner by the statements of the Chief Executive and the investment that we have made in the past and continuing to make. I like the $2 million efficiency savings that the executive team, led by the Chief Executive, I have to say, quite ruthlessly, gone through and actually achieved these savings. The surplus property sales projected of $16 million, and the re-emphasis on co-funding of community projects is important. The Wanganui Surf Life Saving Club, there's $5 to $7 million projects. The ratepayer is in this plan is going to put forward $1 million. Just like the other community projects, like the North Mole rebuild, where the ratepayer is putting in 1.6, another community group has raised $862,000. Then there's the $17.8 million upgrade of the Opera House, where the intention is to raise 50% of that funding. There's also matters, though, that I don't support in this plan, especially unsubsidised projects. We have in this plan the $2.4 million Rapanui Road cycleway, $2.4 million. Now it says that this is unlikely to attract NZTA subsidy like other cycleways have done. There's also the paved crossing across Taupo Key, from Pakaitori to the river, and that $830,000, once again unsubsidised, work that would normally be subsidised by 62% if the case stacked up. So consequently, I do not support those types of projects that are failing to present a case of that allows for subsidisation. My biggest concern, though, is that this plan, it's ironic that it has a $55 million hotel and car park, but has no budget for emergency housing. In fact, we took $4.2 million out of the last long-term plan. And this is what is in critical short supply, emergency housing. And I hope that during this consultation process, this message comes through to this council loud and clear that we simply have to do something about emergency housing. I know we've got plans, strategies, talk about a trust and things. We need beds, and we need it soon. So, don't you give a 2-minute warning?
I just did. I gave you a bit of a warning, but you were so into it that I don't need that you saw me. So I'll let you just finish very briefly, but you've had your time. Yeah.
So it's my belief that further savings can be made. I don't accept and settle for a 10.6 average or a 12.8% residential rate increase. And when the deliberations are done on June the 27th, I will not be voting in favour of any long-term plan that has a year one increase of greater than 10%. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Clearly, for those who are listening on tape, on the camera, you've heard various councillors express their individual concerns about particular items in the consultation document. That informs us all that we are 12, plus the Mayor, very diverse people. We're going to agree on some things and disagree on others, and it'll become very clear in the June deliberations once we've heard back from our community through the month of April and the first couple of days of May. This is a tough document because we're facing the largest rate increase for over a generation, and 66 territorial authorities are facing this dilemma at the same time. We are not an oasis. We're paying for everything you can list in your home, we're paying more for. Why should council be the oasis? We're not immune. We're not above that, and we don't rate for profit. We don't have money in the bank. We only rate for that which we need, and that which we need in a great degree is dependent on public submissions. I agree with Councillor Michael. There should be lots, thousands maybe, of submissions, because that tells us what you think and feel. I'm not interested, although you know I'm on social media, I'm not taking that on board. I will not. The appropriate way is to go through the submissions process, do a written submission, even if it's one line, come and appear and do your 5 minutes. Do what you can, express your views, come to the kororos and huis, meet with us at the different points that are going to be advertised. And if you're angry, so be it. If you're sad, so be it. If you've got an open mind, so be it. But if you're not part of the process, I don't want to hear from you, because in a democracy, you are part of the process. And if you are going to complain outside of that process, you're on your own, because we are really all in this together. And whether you like us or not, or our decisions or not, we have to make decisions on your behalf, regardless of your views. So yes, this is the toughest rate rise that I know of in 20 years. And who knows what the future bodes. But the 10-year plan is an amazing document. The first 3 years are very, very important, particularly the first year, which is what most people might be interested in. 10 years sounds like a long time away. I want to finish by saying to people, if you can get a copy of this document, a hard copy, if you can go online, please, it's written for you to read. It's written in the language of our ratepayers so that you can go through it and go, oh, so that's why they want to set aside money for that. This is why they don't want to spend money on that. This is why they're making those cuts. And those cuts hurt. And for the first time that I'm aware of in 20 years of following these things, we are cutting some services directly to the public. So if you think we're cutting back on staff and employment and contracts and fundings or whatever, it's now the ratepayers' turn to feel the bite, not just in your rates, but in the services. It's not a happy time, but I'm hoping that we'll all be as positive as possible. I do get a bit cranky sometimes on social media about the attacks. I need to have thicker skin. I need to develop a better way of responding that many of my colleagues have, which I'd like to emulate. But sometimes I lose it like a ratepayer loses it. Interesting times. I think it's an amazing document. Please, the public, please read it. Take the time. Please meet with us. Please make submissions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will be voting in support of the recommendation that we have to put out this consultation document. I think that if we could just describe in a couple of sentences what this consultation document's about, I think I could fairly hand on heart say that it's no stone has been left unturned, and I'd like to thank David for his leadership in this process as we have looked for efficiencies and savings. I think you've really done us well, David, leading through that process. Thanks to the staff and to the audit team. It is a huge comfort to know that audit, in spite of your matters of emphasis, which I think are very fair, to have that audit report, and I think Elise has already talked about that means we're going out to the public with a quality document with quality, backed up by quality information. So thank you for that. Looking back in time, I'm not sure whether it was right at the start of the process, but that environmental scan that was produced out of here was top quality. You know, I was very proud of that document, and I thank you for that. I think it's important that we remember that this is an invitation to a discussion, and I really look forward to hearing from our community as you tell us what you think of what we've come up with. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Kate. Councillor Peter.
Oh, it's actually me.
Oh.
I went flat as well.
Right.
I didn't realise I'd spoken that much today.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep. Look, in brief, I will be supporting this draft long-term plan. Yep. I expect. Well, we need to somehow try and reach the silent majority who will not either have the time or the interest or bother, because you know a 12.8% average residential rate is what is actually gonna hit those people a lot. It is a $435 a year increase, I think. It's a lot of money. And while I appreciate a 10.6 average, which is about $3,800 odd dollars, it's a lot of money. We know that. While I really appreciate we're not alone in this, we can look at a whole lot of other councils and we could say that we are doing that we're doing better, and obviously we've got recycling in there, in that 10.6 average rate across our community, but 12.8 for residents. It's just tough. I'm pleased that we've tackled things, actually, including a Sergeant Gallery that's had some operational cuts, as opposed to my colleague. I think that's really important. People will be interested in that. They want to know, the pain's, everyone's got to take some pain here, including that. And we don't have to look far to look at commentary about the cost of museums and art galleries across the country, and it's a national problem and probably an international problem, how to keep them, working for communities, and there's no easy fixes there. And obviously, our new sergeant is, I'm sure the team is working hard to obviously keep operating costs down, to keep that capital cost no more, and to keep bringing in funding and bring in people. But we're not alone there. I will say, though, also, you know, we need to push again about food waste next year, because this community does not support that. And while environmentally, you know, I'm sure the evidence is there, but we need to, you know, we've just got too much stuff. It's too costly, and we need to keep considering that. We need to keep up the conversation with government to realise things like our 6-point plan and to get them to pay for stuff. And, you know, also housing and homelessness is pretty much silent in this, opposed to 3 years ago. It's sitting there, I believe, in, there's some work to be done in research and strategy on the Better Off funding. About 350k, I believe, is sitting there in Better Off funding. Okay, and we need to really look at that, because that is a big issue. Emergency housing, homelessness for our community. I expect people to, I think our community is going to really struggle to understand this plan, but thank you to our team.
Thank you, Philippa. Yeah. Great, and you've just raised the concept of homelessness, but I'm just wondering, and I'm going to ask David Langford, our Chief Executive, to respond to that, and also Councillor Robbs. But before I do, I think we need to move a motion to extend the duration of this meeting, because it's gone over time. Right? So I'm just going to move the motion that the council, pursuant to Whanganui District Council's standing order, suspends standing order 4.2 meeting duration for the remainder of this meeting. Thank you, Councillor Josh. I just want to add in here, I did anticipate there was going to be a long session, and here we are. So hang in there, and appreciate all the effort and the energy just today. Notwithstanding that we've taken a year to get to this point. So, but I'm going to pass over briefly to David. What's that? Sorry. Oh, sorry. All those in favour of this? Yeah. Aye. Against? Motion's moved. Thank you. So, David, I'm just going to pass to you to talk. You wanted to comment on homelessness and housing.
Yes. Through your worship, avoiding entering into debate with the elected members, I did just want to make a few comments, just simply because of the issues raised around why housing and homelessness is not featuring in the consultation document. Look, that is correct. It isn't in there. But that does not, or our community should not take that as an indication that council is inactive against those two areas. You both, Councillor Vincent and Councillor Baker Hogan, are correct. It is a key issue, housing and homelessness for our community. However, we do have a very clear report from the Better Off funding, as Councillor Philippa just referred to. That work's been completed. It's given us clear direction, and we have a report that will be coming to, I think, the next strategy and policy committee meeting, outlining how council can take an active role in the housing sector without having to put a huge burden on the ratepayer or use the council's balance sheet and debt to achieve the goal of building more houses. So it's not in this consultation document because we're actively pursuing it via other channels. And I would say that the ambition that we're going to be articulating at that strategy and policy committee is significantly bolder and orders of magnitude greater than what was in the previous LTP. I think we had about $4 million provision for housing. This proposal could see us pursuing a house building program over the next decade worth in excess of $300 million. So to say we're absent from the housing conversation is inaccurate, but I accept it's not in this consultation document, which is why I wanted to make these comments so anyone who is listening in or the media knows where things are headed.
Yeah, fully.
Correct. What I was referring to was emergency housing, not housing, and there's a big difference.
Okay, thank you. Yep, so you need to go. I'll just very briefly just round things off as the mover for this. I just want to go back. I've already spoken at the start of the session today to say thank you. So this has been a year in the making, so I'm going to say that again. to the council officers who I've already named. So thank you, a big thank you for what you've done. You know, it's my first time and a number of our first time through the process. You've done an outstanding job, so thank you. The other key point here is the rest of the country, as David alerted to and I alerted to, are facing this very issue. And a number of mayors I've spoken to are actually relatively envious of where we're at as a council. Our relatively low debt, we've invested in our infrastructure, and we've been a responsible council. So the job is now with our community to provide feedback on service levels and efficiencies, and if you're worried about council spending, I see on Facebook that council are wasting money. If you think that's the case, tell us where that is the case, but I would challenge that, and I'm happy to look at anything. This is not an and document or an and process, it's an or. We can't do everything and. This is where we've got to have some ors in here. I want to talk also about the affordability and the balance between affordability and aspiration, and that's where this document's at. We've got to look after our community in the near term, but we need to be aspirational about our future because we've got an exciting future ahead of us. The 14th and 15th of May hearings, I'm hoping we need 3 days because I want to hear from you all. So thank you very much once again to you all. There are no further comments. I'll put the motion on the screen that the council adopt the long-term plan 24 to 34 consultation document and supporting material. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? Councillor Charlie. Okay, thank you. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right. Sorry, Councillor Glenda.
I think I should have declared a conflict of interest at the beginning of the meeting for 7.13 and 7.14, and I didn't do that. So can it be noted that I didn't vote for those 2 items, please?
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, noted. We're going to take a very brief break till 4:05. It's been a request. Item is item 7.5, approval to consult on the draft 2024 rates remission policy and the rates postponement policy and the policy on remission and postponement of rates on Māori freehold land. So, welcome back.
Thank you.
Might be a big day for you.
I can take the item as read. There's a few minor changes made to the policies and happy to take questions.
All right, great. That's very efficient. That's what we need at the end of the day. So, any questions on item 7.5? Okay. Happy to move. Councillor Ross, second. Great. All right. So, any... right. Okay, so we move on to comments. Comments? Great, no further comments. I'll put the motion on the screen. 7.5, approval to consult on the draft 2024 rates remission policies, rates postponement policy and the policy on remission and postponement of rates on Māori freehold land. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion's carried. Great, thank you. Two more items to go is item 7.5 and 7.7 and 7.8. So 7.7 is fees and charges 2024-25 statement of proposal and approval to consult. Welcome Tamsin and Claire.
Good afternoon again. Through you, Your Worship, we're just going to talk about fees and charges for 24-25. The Council sets fees and charges for some of its services under its revenue and financing policy. Fees and charges are reviewed regularly just to make sure that they reflect the actual and reasonable costs of providing those services. For 24-25, we have a number of changes in relation to cost escalations in some of our areas. The proposed increases in fees and charges will make sure that we keep the balance right between ratepayer funding and user pays funding for those services. Just to summarise some of the changes, we have inflationary increases in building consents and resource consents, health registrations, cemetery and venue fees. We also have some proposed changes to splash centre fees. These haven't been moved for a number of years. They range from 0 to 25%. Obviously, cash is a factor here too for some of those services. Trade and tankered waste fees are also proposed to increase by 8.5% for the 2024-25 year based on the trade waste model. We also have a few new fees for 24-25, one for transportation vehicle permits, one for in relation to fees for development contributions. That's not the development contribution itself, but fees for reviews or remissions or revisions of those DCs. A curbside recycling fee for properties that join partway through the year, and the formalisation of a sliding scale fee for booking of parks and open spaces. So if approved, the proposed fees and charges for 24-25 would be consulted on concurrently with the long-term plan over that same period to April to May 2024. Any questions?
Questions, Councillor Rob?
Yeah, and can you just outline what that policy is for the curbside recycling partway through the year? What is it?
Yeah, so effectively, because we can only do rating as of 1 July, so if a property comes on, a new residential property is built during the year and perhaps comes on 10 months in, we'll be able to charge the fee for them to take the service on for the rest of that financial year, and
So
then it'll be rated from the following year.
Will it be for the by month or something?
It will be by month, yes,
Okay.
pro rata by month.
Yeah, pro rata.
Yep.
Great, thank you. No further questions. So, Councillor Kate's happy to move. Fees and charges 24-25. Statement of proposal and approval to consult. Councillor Josh to second. Any comments? No. Councillor Michael. Councillor Kate actually was first. So.
Thank you. Thanks for the paper. I really appreciate, in particular, you incorporating the sliding scale notion into higher parks. It acknowledges that our community are not always well heeled, and that the park should be available for everybody. So thanks for that.
Yep.
I was just very happy that the splash centre or swimming charges in general were increasing for adults but not children. I thought that was a good touch. Thank you.
Great. And Councillor Philippa.
Yeah, I'll be approving this for consultation. Also in regard to the splash centre, I mean, it seems reasonable, these charges, generally 50 cents for, you know, a lot of entry, but, you know, and obviously there's a higher, you know, looking at this adult fitness area upstairs, and I guess it might include the spa and the sauna, and it talks about the aqua aerobics classes, and I think that's all good, and I can congratulate the team there. But some of that equipment, and I know there's some point of entry business cases in the plan, etc. Need, you know, some of that equipment definitely needs some much needed upgrading. I guess if we're suddenly going to be, you know, for example, charging people $8 in entry for that, and I see some of that is factored into, you know, the LTP, etc. But good work, and I hope that the community will tell us what they think, but generally be supportive.
Yeah, great. All right. So no further comments. I'll just say that, you know, we've flown through some of these, but I just want to acknowledge the work that goes on to get this particular item ready. And so no further comments. I'll put the motion on the screen that fees and charges 24-25 statement proposal and approval to consult. All those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. Right. Final item is item 7.8, which is review of development contributions policy. Welcome Catherine or Justin. Catherine and Justin, welcome. We've obviously had a workshop on this and a couple of workshops, so other button.
That will do it. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. As you've mentioned, as part of the LTP consultation, we're proposing some amendments to the development contributions policy, and this paper seeks approval for us to adopt it for consultation along with its statement of proposal. The policy is fundamentally a funding policy and financing policy, and we've updated it since its last update in 2021 to reflect a number of kind of key points. One is that the growth profile in the district has fundamentally changed in the last 10 years, and in particular since the policy was first developed in 2018. We're expecting sort of over 1,000 additional residential units in the next decade. And as that development increases, the need for a range of infrastructure, including transport, three waters and community facilities and reserves, also increases. And a fundamental principle that we want growth to be funding growth instead of ratepayers. So I'm happy to take the paper as read or to answer any questions that you have. I think we can cover.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions? Right, great, no questions on this item, so I'm happy to move that the that Council reviews review of development contributions policy 2024. I have a seconder, Councillor Charlie, and comments. No comments, great. So I'll put the motion on the screen. Item 7.8, review of development contributions policy 2024. All those in favour? Yeah, consultation. Yeah, I'll cut through that. But yeah, all those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Right, that's the end of big meeting. So I'm going to close. E hoha ki ranga kia ranganui, e oha ki raro kia papa. Ki a papa tuanuku. Whakatairanga, te kupu, te kōrero, te mahi, ki te pō o te ware. Hei toanga, he mahi a mori, kei puta, ki te whai au, ki te au marama, homie, huie, taiki e.